What's going on? It's Jordan here from Hardcore Music Studio, and in this video I'm going to give you some tips for editing metal vocals, whether that's singing and screaming. I'm going to talk about both here. And look, basically over a decade of working on all sorts of records and dealing with all sorts of styles of vocals, I've realized what the best approach and the best workflow is and the best order to do things when it comes to vocal editing to get the best results. So answering questions like, should I edit timing first or should I do tuning first? And about the tools as well. Should I use time stretching? Should I only manually edit? Where and when can I use those different techniques and which plugins to use, etc. So I'm going to break it all down for you here and give you kind of a bird's eye view of the whole process and what's important for each stage. Real quick, I created a cheat sheet to go along with this video. It's my vocal editing cheat sheet. It just breaks down what I'm about to talk about here, which is, for screams, what are the tools you should use in what order? Same thing for singing and then for background vocals as well. So you can click on the link in the description below or that pops up on this video to grab that cheat sheet by signing up for the mailing list, totally free. But otherwise, let's just dig in here. So first, let's talk about scream vocals. So for screams, there's no pitch, right? We're not going to be doing pitch correction on screaming vocals. So the main thing you got to worry about is timing. Like you can't have scream vocals that are out of time. It's all about the rhythm of the vocal, right? So it can't be distractingly off time with the rest of the band. So when it comes to editing your lead screaming vocal, the technique I use is to basically just manually nudge stuff around. And if I need to, I'll use some time stretching. In this case, I'm using Pro Tools, so it's Elastic Audio, but I believe most other DAWs have equivalent tools. But you've got to remember that when you're using Elastic Audio or other time stretching, it's actually degrading the audio somewhat. And a lot of these tools are very good that you can't really tell, especially with screaming. It can be pretty transparent when you're using these tools, but still, I like to keep the audio as clean and untouched as possible. So I'll always start and try to do as much editing as possible by just manually nudging around the vocal track. So let me show you what I mean here. I'll just play a short little line. Okay, so it's not bad, but there's definitely a few words that are a bit rushed here. So let's check this out again. So it's basically all a bit rushed. So I'm using the nudge function in Pro Tools. So I've got the nudge set to 10 milliseconds, and I'm just going back or forward here to just by really minor amounts move the audio around. So I'm going to nudge it back twice here, so that's 20 milliseconds. So that's a lot better already. So that's all good. And by the way, you can cut up words on the S's for sure, and then just do a quick crossfade on those. That's pretty close there. And when you're editing vocals, both singing and screaming, definitely rely on your ears more than the screen, because it's not like a drum transient where you want it to be right on the grid. Like if you just cut up all of these words, right at the audio waveform and put it all on the grid, it would probably sound kind of weird just because there's the way we pronounce words, it takes time, right? So you might have a waveform that looks like it's coming in early, but it actually sounds perfectly on time. So you want to use your ears that way, not just rely on the grid totally, but obviously it's a good way to get in the ballpark. So let's keep going here. So really just the end of the line here needs to be back for sure. Let's see if we can get this last couple words back. So that's sounding a lot better here. So we just need to fill these gaps, fade it. Come to me! See, that sounded good to me. Again, I don't necessarily want it to be robotically like on the grid, but I just want it to not be distractingly out of time. I'm going to go one step further just to demonstrate a technique for you here. We're going to put Elastic Audio on here, and it's just this one word right there, and it's too far off for me to get away with nudging it manually. Like if I do this and I try to fill the gap, see there's no space to fill that gap with, so I can't nudge that. So we're going to use elastic audio for these purposes. So I just use polyphonic mode here for screams. We'll go to warp view. Okay. So let's put some markers in here. I don't want to touch that. So let's just put a marker here and we'll, the slip mode, it will drag this back a little bit. Let's see how that sounds. So we're getting a little bit of a glitch there. Let's try moving this marker back. So now it's sounding a little bit too late. So that's an example of, how maybe just having it on the grid line doesn't exactly work all the time. So let's just go a little bit less. There we go. Maybe just try a little bit more. I'm actually going to move this up a little bit. It sounds a bit early. The more I listen here, we could kind of massage this a little bit more into place. One more thing, just the word what here I think is a bit late, so let's try to split that up. A little more. That's pretty good. I'm not going to go any further than that. I don't want to have any artifacts, but it's sounding pretty clean now. So here we're just looking at the very end here. The to me still a bit rushed, so let's see if we can fix that. Cool. I think that's all right. So let's see what we got now. So from there, if I'm using elastic audio on a vocal, I'll change this to X-form mode for the highest quality rendering, and then I'll consolidate that and move on. So that's an example of how to edit screams, just starting with manual nudging. A lot of times I hope to get all of the timing editing done just by that, and then I resort to elastic audio if I have to after that, and it can be pretty transparent on scream vocals. Now when it comes to layers and doubles of screams, I like to use a plugin called Vocal Line or Revoice to automatically line those up, and it works great for singing too. I'll just demonstrate it really quick for you here. So you could absolutely just take your edited main vocal track first. You could have your doubles underneath and then use elastic audio to kind of by eye line up the waveforms and then listen to make sure it's okay. What I do is I nudge the doubles and layers around to get them in the ballpark as close as possible, and then I use Vocal Line to really tighten it up. So let's listen to how these sound all together here. Heroes are made in the company. So it's not bad, but there are a couple words here, definitely at the end and somewhere in the middle here. Heroes are. Let me turn up the doubles a bit. Heroes are made in the company. And you can see some lines are ending a bit shorter than the lead and stuff like that. So this is where Vocal Line is going to come in really handy. So here's how it works. We're going to do one track at a time. We're going to open up the plugin. So Vocal Line basically just analyzes a source track and then analyzes a double track and then aligns the double to the original. So we capture the original lead vocal there. We go down, hit dub, capture that. Then you hit the spot button. So before I do that, let's just listen again. Heroes are made in the company. So the in the and the company is what sounds a little bit off to me there. So let's check out the job that this does. Heroes are made in the company. Much tighter. So now we're just going to do that same thing for the second layer on the other side here. And we'll just listen before we change it. Heroes are made
in the company.
Definitely at the end a bit rushed, so let's see what we get here. Let's capture the original again. Line up the double.
Heroes are made in the company.
Super, super powerful. And you can see how fast it is. I used to do this by hand with Elastic Audio, and you can do that. You can use time stretching to warp and just line it up manually. But if you have, I think it's $150, definitely recommend getting Vocal Line if you're working on a lot of vocal editing all the time. So lastly, let's talk about singing vocals. So my workflow for singing is to edit the timing first and then the tuning. And when I edit the timing for singing, I do not use any time stretching. I don't want to degrade the audio. I find with singing, the artifacts from it are way more evident. So, of course, the tracking stage is very important to get as tight as possible, and then any final adjustments just by nudging manually on singing vocals. Time stretching is a last resort for a lead vocal. So let's check out a singing line here. So let's try to fix the timing here. It's not bad. It's definitely a bit rushed. And then that's a bit laggy. So again, we cut on kind of the S's. That's where you can get away with it, or in between words. That back a bit. Let's put that just a little back. So again, you can see how I'm not worrying about getting it right on the grid. I'm just using my ears to see what feels good here. That word's definitely coming in early. So is that. So after all that's done, I'll go through and make sure I have all of these cuts crossfaded so we don't get any artifacts or clicks or pops. I'm not going to go in depth for the sake of time on this video. So go through and make sure all of those edits are clean with fades, and then it's time to tune. And what I like to use for tuning is auto-tune. I've used both Melodyne and auto-tune. I think it's fine if you use whatever you're comfortable with. I just find that auto-tune is a little bit more powerful, and once I learned to use it, I found it a little bit easier for me and faster. So the key is we're not just throwing on auto-tune on automatic mode here. We're going to go into graphical mode, and I'll give you a quick demo of how this works. So first, we are going to capture the pitch. I'll just do the last line here. So for auto-tune graphical mode, in order to make your vocal tuning very transparent, you need to leave the start and the end of words untouched. So you see how the start of this word, he's kind of like swooping up to the note. This is the note here. This is the part that we want to tune. Can go a little tighter there. So I'm just going to get like the meat of the words where he's holding the notes, not the start and endings. We're going to leave that bit of vibrato in there. Let's go back to this first line. It's a little bit shaky still. See how he's dipping a bit flat here. And we're going to leave that end how it is. So see how I'm leaving this part? I'm leaving the start of the words. If you tune that stuff too tightly, that's when you start to get the fake robotic kind of T-Pain effect. Sounding great. So when it comes to harmonies and background vocals for singing, I actually do the opposite. I fix the tuning first, and then I do the time stretching. And the reason for that is, if you do time stretching first, you're going to alter, you might get some artifacts in the track, some subtle artifacts from the time stretching or expansion. And then you don't want to use that with auto-tune or Melodyne. It's going to kind of cause headaches. So I do the tuning first, with listening to the lead vocal and the harmony at the same time, or the double tuning first, and then I'll commit that tuning, and then I'll use vocal line the same way I showed you already to line up the extra layers with the lead vocal. So different workflows for both of those things. And the reason why I'm okay with using time stretching and stuff for the doubles and layers is because, they're never on their own, right? They're with the lead vocal. So you're not going to hear the subtle artifacts that might happen with time stretching, whether it's vocal line or elastic audio or warping. The key is that those layers are really tight and in time with the lead vocal. So I'm totally willing to have a little bit of artifacts that no one will ever hear, but have all those stacks of vocals just be very, very tight and in time, in tune with the lead, and that's what's going to give you that nice, polished, clear vocal sound. Hope this was helpful for you. This is the workflow that I found delivers the best results, the least artifacts, and the least headaches. It's the most efficient for me. Again, after working on hundreds of songs, hundreds of different vocalists over the years. Try it out for yourself in this order and way of doing things. Check out the tools, get some demos of VocalLine or AutoTune if you don't have them already. And if you want to go more in depth on editing not only vocals but other instruments, drums, guitars, bass, and everything else, definitely make sure you're on my email list to get notified of courses opening up that I have, my premium training, or just new content that I put out here for free. And once again, you can join the mailing list by getting the free vocal editing cheat sheet that I provided with this video. Just click the link on the screen here or in the description below to grab that and get on the list for all the best content that I have. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel for new videos and leave a comment below. Let me know what you thought of these editing tips. All right, thanks for watching. Talk soon.